TJ Atkinson in the building, your finance and property coach. So let's get straight into this. In today's video, we're going to talk about 3 property strategies that you can start with less than £3,000. Damn! Now, in fact, I'm going to go as in-depth as possible, so you're going to get so much value. Do me a favor, while we're talking about value, if you get some value from this video, make sure you smash that subscribe button in the face. In fact, I'm going to hold on for 2 seconds while you punch that subscribe button right now. 1, 2, okay, 2, okay, let's go guys. So in this video, we're going to talk about 3 property strategies that you can start with less than £3,000 and go on to create a 6-figure income. Now, I say that 6-figure just for a bit of hype, because the truth is, it's not going to happen overnight. Now that I've said that, now you know that none of these are get-rich-quick schemes, and you understand that every single thing I'm going to teach you requires time and effort. But more importantly, if you don't have a lot of money to buy a property, then you want to consider one of these 3 as your benchmark, as your starting place to get into property. One of the reasons I teach these 3 specific property strategies is because they are low entry, and the barriers to start are significantly lower than buying a property. Doesn't mean you shouldn't have the goal of buying. What many people need to do in many cases is increase their income so that they can buy quicker. If you're currently on a salary of £25,000 per year and you've got a business that's making you an extra £10,000, it means you can add that together, which improves your affordability, which also helps you to buy your property quicker. So let's get straight into my 3 favorite property strategy that anyone can start if they don't have a lot of money. Number 1, serviced accommodation. Now, this is one of my go-to property strategies. Serviced accommodation effectively means you become a small boutique hotel. So let's do the maths. There are millions and millions of people that come into the UK every single year. And those millions of people stay overnight in hotels and B&Bs. Those millions of people spend £28 billion on luxury goods and hotels. So what we do is we find a landlord or an agent or a developer, and we explain to them that, hey, Mr. Landlord, hey, Mrs. Landlord, I would like to rent your property. With your permission, I would like to re-rent it out to my 4 different types of customers. And my 4 different types of customers are contractors, corporates, tourists, and leisure. Now, guess what? You can start to see the pattern forming. Those are the 4 different types of people that stay in hotels and are spending £28 billion on luxury good and hotels. So your job is to find a landlord, a buy-to-let landlord that has bought a property, that's looking for a credible person to rent the property from them and pay them rent every single month. So your job is to say, hey, Mr. Landlord, I'm a suitable tenant. I'm a suitable person to take on your property. And what I want to do with your property is re-rent it out with your permission to these 4 different types of people. And these 4 different types of people are used to pay in hotels. So all I'm going to do is turn your property into a small boutique hotel and allow these people who are currently spending £28 billion to pay me instead of a hotel. I hope you caught that. So let's do the maths on this. How much do you want to generate per year? Is it 30,000? Is it 50,000? Is it 100,000? Let's go back to the maths. There's a £28 billion pie, and your job is to extract 30,000, 50,000 or £100,000 from a £28 billion pie by legally renting someone's property with their permission. Now let's talk about something, subletting. Many people who are probably watching this video or hearing about serviced accommodation for the first time will probably have this notion or idea in their head that subletting is illegal, and that's not true. Subletting is not illegal. Illegal subletting is illegal. Illegal subletting means you have not gained permission from the landlord to allow you to re-rent his or her property. Now, the reason why it's illegal is because the landlord might not have the adequate covering, such as the insurance or mortgage product, which means if there's a fire, if there's a leak, if someone passes away in the property, the landlord is not protected because the landlord was not aware of what you were planning to do in the property. So if you are going to get into the strategy, you've got to make sure the landlord is fully aware and fully covered and knows exactly what you plan to do in the property. Now, do bear in mind that illegal subletting is punishable by 6 months in prison or a fine. So can you make money from serviced accommodation? Of course you can. let's do the maths again, because I really like, and I wish you guys could see this as I write this, because I write so I can think better. Let's do the maths. Let's imagine you are a hotelier and you want to build a hotel in London. So you find a plot of land in London and you start negotiating on that plot of land. While you're doing your negotiation, you do what we call a feasibility study. This is specifically for hotels. So you do a feasibility study that could cost you 300,000 to 500,000, and that's to figure out whether there's enough business in this area for you to buy this land and build the hotel. Now let's imagine the feasibility study comes back positive, which means there's a lot of business in the area. There's a lot of people that travel into the local area and people would like a hotel in that area. Someone's now paid 300,000 or 500,000, maybe £1 million for a study before they've even bought the land. Now imagine they buy the land. And let's say the land in London cost £1 million to buy the land. So far they've already spent £1.3 million even before they built the structure. Let's go with the assumption they get some really good builders and they're able to build the hotel for another £1 million. That's £2.3 million that's gone down in order for someone to start a hotel. Now check this. All we do is we find a way to ethically steal business from the hotel. I want you to catch this. If somebody has spent £2.3 million to build a hotel in this area, guess what they know that we don't know? They know that this area is buoyant. This area is on fire. Nobody with £2.3 million is dumb enough to go and spend £2.3 million without knowing how they're going to generate an income to pay back that £2.3 million investment. You see the logic as to why this works. Your job is to ethically steal business from the hotel who spent £2.3 million, but all you've got to do is find a property within 10-minute walk from a hotel, so 5-minute drive, 10-minute walk from a hotel, ethically direct the business that was going to the hotel, whoosh, past the hotel, and to your front door. That's how we make money in this business. That's exactly how we make money in this business. You provide an essential service for people who want to stay in a property overnight. They would typically have stayed in a hotel, but guess what? They're going to stay with you instead because you've provided much more economic value. So that's number one, what we call rent to serviced accommodation. Just don't forget this. Hey, Mr. Landlord. Hey, Mrs. Landlord. I would love to rent your property. With your permission, I would like to re-rent it out to my 4 different types of customers: contractors, corporates, tourists, and leisure. And that's how you start to generate an income. We charge per night. So we charge the customer per night like a hotel would. So again, you can do the maths. If you're renting someone's property for £1,200 per month, and you are charging, let's say, £100 per night, and someone stays with you for 30 nights, that's potentially £3,000 that you've generated. You pay the landlord their rent of £1,200. You pay the cost of running your business, and you keep the difference, which could be anything from £500 to £1,000. Depending on those factors. So how much does it cost to actually start a serviced accommodation business? Well, it depends on your location. It depends on your negotiation skills. I have clients who have started with less than £700. I have clients who have started with £10,000. I have clients who have started with £1,000. The first call is, what location would you like to provide this service? Then you can look at the going rates and the going rents in those areas. Then we add on top your ability to negotiate with the landlord. And then that helps to determine how much it's going to cost for you to get started. So number 2, let's talk about something called rent to rent HMO. One of my secondary property strategies simply means you go to a landlord. Hey, Mr. Landlord. Hey, Mrs. Landlord. I would like to rent your property. With your permission, I would like to re-rent it out to a number of different people. Now, the difference between property strategy number 1, which is serviced accommodation, and HMO is we have overnight guests who can stay from 1 night to 30 nights, or 1 night to 90 nights, or 1 night till forever. Whereas with rent to HMO, these are what we call tenants. So it means someone is planning to stay in this property for a specific duration of time. So it means they might be there for 6 months. It means they might be there for 12 months, but they are a tenant. So what you want to do is to find a suitable property. Now this can be done in a number of ways. You can do it the traditional way, which means you rent maybe a 3-bed apartment or maybe a 4-bed apartment that has a front room, and you convert that front room into a bedroom. Now, this is where the money's made. Now, again, these are just hypothetical figures. Let's say you are renting a property from a landlord for $1,200 and it's a 3-bed property. Okay, so if we did the maths on this, you might rent out each room for £450. Now, to make your money, to make the profit, what you want to do is turn the front room, the living room, into an additional bedroom. And that brings you in 450 times 4 as opposed to 450 times 3. Now, this is where it gets a bit interesting because most properties are priced accordingly anyway. So if a landlord was to rent you a property that's a 3-bed property, he would be charging you based on 2 things. What's the going rate in the area and the amount of people that would typically stay in that property. So it means if it's a 3-bed property, it could be a family, therefore they're going to charge $1,200. But you make the money by turning the spare room or the living room into an additional bedroom. So it means you're going to have people who are sharing the communal spaces. It means you're going to have people who are sharing a house. In many cases, it's not going to be family members. It's going to be individuals who maybe cannot afford their own 1-bed apartment or their own studio apartment or their own 2-bed apartment. And it's a lot easier for them to share a house in a living space. With that specific strategy, I absolutely love it. All you have to do is market to people who are looking to rent a room in a property. Now, in some cases, you might, and you've got to get permission from the landlord, you might have to put a partition up. You might have to take down a wall. You might have to rejig the structure of the property. In many cases, you don't. But in some cases, in fact, in many cases, you might need to partition. And many landlords are not against you partitioning their property. Many a times their agreement is simply once you vacate the property or once you leave the property or once your contract finishes, you return the property back to how it was given to you. So again, you can generate anything from £400 per month to £1,000 per month by utilizing somebody else's property. So again, both strategies, strategy A, which is serviced accommodation, rent to service accommodation, strategy B, which is HMO, also known as rent to HMO, means you don't have to buy a property, but you've got to be able to rent a property or negotiate to manage, control, or lease the property. Number 3, one of my favorite property strategies. We call this the KFC combo strategy because it allows you to earn big time. The strategy that we call deal packaging. Deal packaging simply means you do the legwork for an investor. So it means an investor wants to get started in a property strategy, whether it's serviced accommodation, whether it's rent to rent HMO, whether it's a buy to let, whether it's flips, whether it's commercial conversions. An investor approaches you and says, hey, listen, I know you've got some time. I know you have some skill. I know you've got a good network. I would like you to find me a suitable property for strategy A, rent to serviced accommodation. And you say, no problem at all. And you go out there, you build the relationships with landlord agents and developers, and you negotiate on a great deal for that landlord. Now, once the landlord goes through the analysis, does their own analysis, does their own due diligence, and they say, ha, TJ, I love this deal. You then put both of them together. You put the landlord or the agent or the developer together with the investor. They tie up the deal, or you tie up the deal. It depends on how you want to structure it. And they pay you a fee for providing them with a deal. Now, I want to try and simplify this as much as possible. It's not easy. It's simple, it's not easy. Your job in essence is to go out there and find deals for people. Simple. I find deals for people. I buy deals from people. People come to me, say, TJ, look at this deal. What do you think about this deal? I'm charging £2,000 for this deal. I do the numbers. I see that this makes a lot of sense. Over the next 5 years, I can generate £100,000 from this deal. Hey, here's £2,000. That's how deal packaging works. Now, anyone can do deal packaging if you're willing to go out there and build the relationships, but also bear in mind if you're willing to take the rejections. Because think about it this way. You're going to go to an agent and you're going to take the rejections on behalf of the investor. In many cases, an investor doesn't want to take the rejections, or the investor is too busy running their core business, or maybe has a full-time job and they don't have the time or the patience or the skill set to call landlords, agents and developers to pitch them the idea of taking on their property for serviced accommodation or HMO. And your job is to do all that legwork, and then you get rewarded for it. So you can generate anything from £1,000 to £5,000 per deal by simply going out there and putting the deals together for your investor. I talk about these 3 strategies because they are my go-to strategies. These are strategies that have done well for me. These are strategies that have done well for many of my clients and my mentees. If any of these strategies are something you would like to go deeper into, I offer a training program on these 3 strategies that can teach you how to level up and generate an income for yourself. Catch you soon.